Okay, so welcome to today's yin practice. Going to be a little bit more active. Like I mentioned, this isn't to excite or create heat in the body. It's really just to restore energy that we may feel is a little depleted, which is easy to have happen. So let's get started today in a comfortable seated position. That can be any way you like. If you have a wall close to you, I would suggest using the wall. So one great thing to do is use a blanket or towel roll, sit up against the wall, but place your support at your low back. What that's going to help you do is sit up nice and tall and bring the shoulders back, opening up the chest, keeping the belly drawn in and the pelvis soft and heavy. Can move the shoulders up, down, and back. Pull the ears back. Slightly tuck the chin and draw it back as well. Lift through the inside of the back of the neck. And notice your comfort level. If you need to adjust or move through the legs, go ahead and do that. Beginning to find your breath. Not as though you've lost your breath, but finding a more meaningful, more connected breath to the body that you're in. If helpful, you can place a hand over the belly and the heart. Maybe you just place your hands together in your lap or hands to the legs. Noting that whatever you choose to do with your hands is a mudra that your body and mind are intuitively asking you to do. And then finding some sort of gratitude for that innate wisdom, that the body knows what it wants, and that you can provide that. Beginning to deepen the breath, deepening the inhale, feeling the rib cage lift, expand wide and expand deep. Exhale, everything comes back right into the center of the heart. Inhale to expand. Exhale to soften and release. Perhaps you inhale and expand, and you pause there, completely full of air, for just 1 or 2 beats. And then you exhale completely, using a little bit of contraction through the muscles of the abdomen to get as much air out as you can. And then maybe you rest at the bottom, empty of air in that stillness for 2, 3, or 4 beats. Then breathing when it feels right. Letting the exhale be longer than the inhale. The suspension of the breath be longer than the retention of the breath. Recognizing that this is not that samavriti, that same breath, or that square breath. Each of the 4 parts of the breath are a little different. Welcoming in that difference. Noticing it, how it is affecting and how it feels in the body and the mind. It's helpful to have imagery with this breath. You can imagine an orb or a shape or a color of some sort. And as you breathe in, it either expands or gets brighter, or both. As it holds, as you retain the breath, maybe there's some movement, some shaking, some pulsating of light. And as you exhale, it gets smaller, dimmer. And at the bottom, as you wait for the need to breathe, welcome the complete stillness while still feeling the heartbeat, that vibrant aliveness beneath the surface. Letting this pranayama practice really help bring you to a state of being that is helpful for your yin practice today. Harnessing your energy, feeling a sense of power and control, respecting your edges while welcoming in softness. Noticing if there's anywhere in the body that as you continue your breath work, you can soften and relax, starting with the face, forehead and between the eyebrows, the temple to the scalp. And then as if you're having warm honey pour down from the crown of your head and it's seeping down to the rest of your body, just begin to relax and soften all of those muscles. The only effort or contraction or use of muscles you'll feel and really be involved with is your breathing muscles. When you feel a sense of peace, when everything feels soft and relaxed, the breath is steady, you can welcome back a natural pattern of breathing, your natural breathing rhythm. And here, just observe, being curious, being completely aware. Keeping the sense of peace, begin to blink the eyes open, maybe flutter them open. And think about your perception of time. That was 10 minutes guided pranayama visual meditation. Sometimes it can feel like meditation lasts a while, and other times it's just a blink, it's gone. So just taking that with a sense of awe and wonder if it felt fast or slow. Preparing to really begin our practice. So in your seated position, however you are seated, I'd like you to begin just moving through the shoulders to start. You can do one at a time. You can do both at the same time. You can begin to involve the rib cage, maybe leaning from one side to the other. And then again, incorporating this leaning with the rolling of the chest, the rib cage. Again, breath is boss here, so let the breath really move you. It would be more helpful to you in your practice today that you are completely still and restful, but have a nice steady stream of breath, than to move and stretch and lose connection with your breath. So let the breath be what's in charge. If you'd like to come away from the wall if you are at one, this is a good time to do so. You can also switch the cross of the legs if you prefer, but you certainly don't have to. If you're more comfortable with one leg in front of the other, stay there. But let the movements now get a little bit bigger, leaning side to side until you feel a little bit of stretch in the side body. If you'd like, you can begin moving through one shoulder. So I'm leaning over to the right side, and I'm moving through my left shoulder as the left side body gets opened. Then you can even reach up and over, getting a nice stretch. Now we're not holding this as a yin pose, so feel free to go a little bit deeper than you would if we were stopping at that first edge. Maybe go to your second edge. Come back up through center and over to the other side, feeling the body open, feeling a nice reach. Maybe moving through the shoulder. Back up through center. Lifting up nice and tall. Letting the twist come from the shoulders and the heart space, not from squeezing the core and using the low torso to turn. Instead, begin with the shoulders, as if you're trying to pull your right shoulder back, left shoulder towards the right. And then try and pinch your shoulder blades together and pull the belly in. And then squeeze your buttons. This is more active. This is a metal element. Come back to center and over to the other side. So again, squeeze the buns, pull in the belly, lift up through the head. Left shoulder pulls back behind you, right shoulder comes forward, but the collarbones stay broad. And just the heart is trying to look to the left. The low back is stable. And come back to center. Now some seated cat-cows, hands can glide up and down the legs. So starting maybe at the hands to knees, and then pull the center of your spine behind you and completely hollow out the front of your body. Take a full breath in here, and a full breath out. Full breath in as you bring the heart forward and up, tailbone up behind you. Full breath in, full breath out. Breathing in. And now as you breathe out, press into the hands, maybe even grip to the knees, find a little bit of wood element as you hollow the front of the body, tuck the chin, even rounding the back of the neck. Now moving with your breath, letting these movements get as dramatic as you'd like. Maybe they stay small. Maybe you'd like to involve in some more of those side body stretches. You can do this in big circles. I'll demonstrate that. So as I hollow the body and pull back, I lean towards the left, bring the heart forward into that cow type shape, over to the right, and then to the back for my cat-like shape. Nice, switch directions. Doing this with the breath, nice and slow. Remember, this is yin. You're not trying to heat up the body. We're encouraging stretching, but we're again doing this a little more actively than normal. And the spine feels like it's gotten to move in all 6 different directions. You feel nice and warmed up from the spine, not the muscles. Then it's time to really get going into our practice. So let's start rolling through the wrists a bit. You can massage one with the opposite hand. For me personally, I enjoy doing my wrist stretches with hands to floor. You're welcome to do them seated still if you prefer to get your wrist flexion and extension that way. I find it highly effective to come into a tabletop and then start first by palms down, fingers spread wide, and then lean the chest far forward. Grip them through the fingertips and come back. And then turn the fingertips towards you, palm up, same thing. And come back. You can even do those same circles that we did with cat-cows, except for maybe this time you pull the belly in, find a little bit of metal element there. Do some circles on the wrists. Change direction of the fingers. You can imagine your mat like the face of a clock. And with palms up, you want them to go to 12 and 3 and 9 and 6. Work all the way around the face of the clock, and then do the same thing with the palms up. So just taking your time here. Again, yin is slow. So I'm going to start here, fingers at 12. A little bit of stretch, rock side to side, front to back. And then I'm going to change the direction of the hands. forward and back, side to side. Fingers are back now. Once you do this, it's important that you don't completely hyperextend. In yin, it's actually depending on which teacher of yin, which lineage of yin that you follow. This is perfectly fine, but it's a little safer to slightly bend the arms. And my personal opinion is if you can be safer on the body, if you can protect the joints, why wouldn't you do that? But it is up to you. It's a bit of a gray area. So if you'd prefer to let them hyperextend just for a bit, you can do that. That would be more of a wood element, so it is permissible, but be careful. And if you're curious why we are doing this, so many wrist stretches in the yin practice, it's because we will be doing a dragon series, and I want to make sure that any weight that you have on your hands is something that's safe in your body. We'll use blocks or hands to the ground, maybe even hands to legs. But I don't want you putting all of your weight, all of the stress and strain of the pose purely into the legs. I want it to be pretty balanced. So when you feel ready, go ahead and tuck the toes if you're able to, and sit back towards the heels to get a toe stretch. Now, if this is something that's just not possible for your body, it's just not reasonable to ask of the body, you can build up in front of you with props, and you can sort of come to forearms, walk the knees back, and then push back towards the heels. You can even lift up the knees and push back towards the heels. What we're looking for is a stretch in the bottom of the feet. Now, if you can do this kneeling and just lean back, you're welcome to do that as well. But I'm not asking you to take camel pose, okay? I'm just asking you to stretch the bottoms of the feet. If none of those options are working for you, I will offer one more, since I think modifications are a gift to the world. They've helped me more than I can say. Come back to table, and then you'll stretch one leg long, and then you'll just press into that heel. Now it's going to stretch more than just behind the heel. You might even get into behind the calf or the shin, or behind the knee, excuse me. Maybe even up to the hamstring. And switch sides. But really focus on spreading the toes and pressing through the toes. We want a nice, good toe stretch. Good. Now, come to a seated position. And before we get into our dragon pose, we're going to start with the more insect-like poses. So we're going to start with our caterpillar. Suggestions for props and modifications. If you have a hard time coming forward without really breaking at that low back and finding roundness here, lift up the hips. It's going to give you a head start on the anterior tilt of your pelvis, so your little tail feathers can flip up, okay? If you are okay with some roundness in that earth element, if you don't have any bulging discs or low back issues, you're welcome to go ahead and let there be some rounding. That's just fine. Another option, which I highly recommend, is just some padding beneath the knees. Just like that. So even if you're very flexible, very, even hypermobile, and you can reach forward, a little bit of support under the knees can never be harmful. It can always be beneficial though. So as you're ready, let the heels go forward, and then let the heart and the hands go forward as well. We're going to find our caterpillar pose. So beginning to reach and lean forward. Tucking the chin, letting the crown of the head go further forward. Noticing where you feel sensation. Hopefully the entire back side of the body. As the front side compresses, the back body can open. If at any point you need to adjust, if you realize that this roundness isn't what's beneficial for you, it's not what's best for you, again, straight through the spine. Maybe that means that the heart stays lifted and the hands come to the floor. Maybe there's a prop that you can use, like a kickstand of some sort, as long as you feel sensation behind the legs, up into the glutes and the low back. And again, we're looking for that first edge. We're not going as deep as we can. And feel free to adjust your practice, the shapes that your body's in, with the sensations that you feel. If you need to adjust or move either further into or out of a pose, go ahead and do that. Always honoring the edge that you feel and that you know is in the body. Hopefully you'll notice that the sensation, the intensity has diminished. One of the magical things about yin yoga is what it does for the nervous system. And that's when we find true flexibility or mobility. When our nervous system, even when our fascial system, which is like the nervous system of our muscles, and it recognizes that we're safe and we're not going to take it too far. So we're going to respect those edges and kind of rest there until sensation decreases. It sends messages that we can actually begin to go a little bit deeper in the future. So it's building trust with yourself, even subconsciously, to deeper layers of the self. Can you try and find more connection to your breath? And slowly begin to roll up. If you have a prop on top of your legs like I do, just move it to the side. Lean back towards the hands, hands on the floor. You can bend the knees if you'd like, or you can just stay here. Lift up through the heart, stretch through the legs. You can also find that reverse plank if it would feel good. What we're doing is just trying to let the pelvis get unkinked. We had that fold for a while, so we had that kink of the hose, that energy line or meridian line. So we want to open it up now. You can even come back to forearms if that would feel good for you. There's going to be quite a bit of using those hip flexors to flex through the hip and bend through that area. So we want to make sure we give lots of counter movement or counter opening when we don't become imbalanced in that area. And then coming back up from our caterpillar, we're going to find the butterfly. So soles of the feet together, knees apart, heels in as close as you'd like them to be. You can sit up nice and tall, maybe even finding wood element by grabbing onto the feet, the toes, the ankles, whatever you can, lifting the heart and lifting up through the back of the head and neck. Pull the shoulders back, widen the collarbone, shoulder blades together and down the spine. If you'd like to use just for a moment a little bit of muscular effort to pull the knees down towards the earth, you can. Don't need to. But only do that for a moment, just to feel that metal, that wood as your body lifts up, as you feel resistance. Now progressively relax. Notice how there was effort, and now there's ease. You have the same options here. You can round and melt forward for more of an earth element. You can still keep the earth element without the rounding if that's something that compromises your low back. Same thing, perhaps nice kickstand here, bolster the forehead. You can also stack up the props. If you don't have a bolster that's stiff enough or rigid enough for that, what you can do is make a really nice tight towel roll with a beach towel. You can also use maybe another yoga mat and then wrap that in a towel to make it thicker. Or you can just stack what you have and use that for your support. Try to relax through the hips, not using muscular effort to force the knees down. Instead, we're just softening. We're letting there be some external rotation, so the insides of the thighs are starting to rotate back, and that comes naturally as we let the hinge of the heart come forward. So gravity and positioning, maybe even weighting down the feet with some props, help find all the opening, all the edge that you need in the shape. If you notice any discomfort in the ankles or the knees, I'd like you to come out of it. Either sitting up, bringing the feet either closer or further away from the pelvis, providing support under the knees to get them up a little bit higher, maybe even leaning back a bit. And now, beginning to come out of this pose, setting props aside again. Somewhere within reach that's helpful. And then send your feet wide. So maybe to the corners of the mat, Windshield wiper through the toes. If you'd like to bend the knees and windshield wiper that way, you can. And then bring the knees behind you, hands in front of you in table. And we are going to find a downward facing dog, which again, we don't do often in yin, but it can be very helpful. We won't hold it very long. It can be more just for breath count and then transition. So stretch that right foot back, maybe even press through the heel, get another stretch behind the heel. Right knee down, left foot straightens. And then when you're ready, both feet, and then lift hips up and back. Deep bend in the knees, lift the heels, press into the hands, rotate the underarms towards you to broaden the upper back. The spine is nice and straight. Pushing the top part of the mat away from you, pulling the calves apart from one another, and then energy heavy to the heels. Breathe here, let the head hang heavy. Stretching the backs of the legs, strengthening the arms, and the knees. Begin to soften and bend as you walk feet forward just a step or two, and then bring the hands towards the feet. So now you're about the middle of your mat. And what we're going to find here is ragdoll. Now you have the option, I'm going to give you two options for this. So the first is a traditional ragdoll. The feet can be wider than hip distance, as wide as you'd like. Bend the knees a little and then lift up for your sits bones. And then as if you can disconnect the low ribs from the pelvis, unhinge, disconnect, and then hinge forward. Torso, back of the head, crown of the head heavy. You can cross the arms like me, or if you need some support, if that's too much, put some weight in the hands, let that happen. Then you can even move a little to find the weight distribution that works well for you. If it feels good, you can rock side to side as you get really settled into the shape. If the hands do not reach the floor, again, we have props, let's use them. Perhaps this, remember, nice bent knees, it's hard to see in the pants I'm wearing, I'm so sorry about that. So you can see here, my knees are nice and bent. And you can use your hands to blocks. But either way, let the head hang. You can also find any other expression with the arms that feels good. So for some people, ragdoll is really easy. They don't feel much edge, so they like to invite in other parts of the body. Maybe the hands coming together and dropping forward. Opening through the front of the chest, closing through the back of the heart space. We are not here for long, so if you start to feel like, when are we getting out of this? Only a few more breaths. This is not a pose meant to be held for very long. So have no fear. Take an inhale and lift the heart away from the legs. If you have props in front of you, put some more weight into the hands, and then just begin to bend one knee and lean the hips from one side to the other, just like we're windshield wipering before, but this time it's the hips we're windshield wipering. And now we're going to get down to our hands and knees again so that we can find our dragon series. This is a really great time for cushioning, whether that is an actual cushion, pillow, beach towel, blanket, something to protect the knees. In fact, even though I'm on carpet with a 5mm mat, I'm also going to use a folded blanket. So starting with, put it under the left knee. So go ahead and put your cushion under the left knee and then step that right foot forward. Blocks are helpful here. Thinking about this as a low runner's lunge. So you can start by leaning forward enough so that you feel the front of the left pelvis really open, but not so much that you feel an intense pinch in the front of the right pelvis. You can bring that left knee back a bit. We don't want to rest completely on the patella. We want to be just above it. So it's kind of finding balance there. So keeping the lean forward, but not being too intense. If this is beyond your first edge, if you're already starting to think, wow, this feels pretty intense, walk your blocks, walk your body back. You can even bring the hips back so they're more over the knee than they are pressing forward towards that front heel. Now the options to intensify this pose, which again, since it's yin, we're honoring edges, but if you are very open here and you really want more, bring the hands down closer to the earth, which is also going to bring the pelvis heavier towards the earth. Bring hands down to the floor, or even hands to that front leg or to the heart. Wouldn't necessarily recommend hands to the heart in a yin practice. I would recommend hands to the earth first. We're not here long. Dragon series are generally pretty short. We're going to keep them pretty short and sweet today as well. Now the counter pose for this is going to be stretching through that right leg. Bring your blocks with you so you can get some height, so we're not really crunching in on that front left hip flexor area. We're just beginning to open up this one and then open up the back of the leg. And we're not here for long. Switch sides. So we move our padding under the right knee. We step that left foot forward, walk our hands forward. You can sort of pulsate back and forth, or maybe make it more flowy, moving with the breath. But eventually land into this dragon pose. Letting there be as much metal as you'd like in your practice. Metal meaning squeezing in, lifting up and lengthening, straight spine, engaged muscles, active. Earth would be rounding, melting. Wood would be feeling some resistance. So maybe, not resistance, I guess, but one example for wood in this would be to have your hands here, and instead of keeping a nice structured, strong shoulder, hanging into the shoulders a bit. This is a good way to invite in wood to that dragon pose. Of course, water would be flowing side to side. And fire, we're not going to invite in fire. There's already enough in this dragon. We don't need any heat. Now, if you really wanted fire, I would suggest doing it with the breath. Kapalabhati breath would be helpful for that. If it's in your practice, I'm not going to cue it, so that means if you don't already know it and do it safely, don't do it. And adjusting if you need to adjust. Maybe moving the hips back a bit, maybe even going a little deeper, lifting up a little more through the chest, trusting yourself. Now finding that counter stretch. Bring the hips back, walk the hands back. Heart forward. You can even move through some cat-cow-like shapes here. These counter movements and counter pose times are really yours to do what your body needs to release anything that was bound up or shut down in the pose. And now bring the left knee back so we're kneeling a bit. Hands can stay tall on these blocks just like I have. And then begin to find some cat-cows here and notice how they feel different. It's going to be predominantly the upper back. So can you feel the shoulder blades spread in your cat? And then in your cow, can you feel the shoulder blades come together and pinch? Bring them down your spine. Feel the lift. Good. Neutralize, wag your tail, shake it out. We have another dragon, okay? So this time we're gonna bring our right foot forward and we're gonna walk it to the right edge of the mat, hands on the inside. So if you do Vinyasa style yoga, lizard, yin, dragon. And I mentioned it before, but the reason that there are different names for the same types of poses are because in yin yoga, we don't want expectation that we'll have to look a certain way. There's not the same alignment cues. There's no form that we're all eager or aiming to get to. It's all about sensation. So right now, the goal of this shape is to have your right hip begin to externally rotate, just like we did in that butterfly. If you'd like to bring forearms down closer to the earth, you are certainly welcome to do so. Let that knee continue to open further away from your midline. Paying attention to the knee and the ankle, of course. I'm going to give you the option to stay just like you are here, or if you would also like a quadricep stretch. Remember, this is completely optional. Left hand down, you're going to rotate your chest, just like we did those twists before, leading with the head, the shoulders, the heart. Reach back with the right hand, bend through the left knee. Quadricep stretch. Notice if you're hyperextending, see how I am in my elbow. Again, technically it's fine for yin. I'd like to protect my joints, so I'm going to softly bend. Same thing with that back knee. If you notice you're getting a little too much stretch, either bring the knee forward or back. You can experiment with that. What's better? For me, I'm going to bring my front heel back. I'm going to come up a little bit more over that knee. And then from here, I'll bring the heel to my glute and lean forward. And that's going to help me find my edge. You may need something a little bit different, but sometimes it's helpful just to hear what someone else does and then try it for yourself. Just like before, we are not here long, so take 3 more breaths. Nice and steady. If you have hold of your foot, go ahead and release it. Hands down, straighten through that right leg. You can use your blocks to walk the hands back and stay tall. Pull the right hip back, press the left hip forward. Right knee back. Left foot forward to the outer edge of the mat. Same thing, dragon pose. Perhaps keeping high or getting low. Externally rotating, opening up through that left knee. Also feeling a stretch in the front, the right hip flexors. As there's heaviness, the pelvis pouring towards the earth. Same option to bend through the back knee and reach back with the left hand. breathing into every sensation that you have. Moving through the neck if that would feel good. 3 more breaths here. If you'd like, you can do that still bound to that back foot if you took that option, or setting it down, and then taking 3 more breaths. I feel like today we're breaking all of my normal yin rules with the shapes and poses that we're doing. So we're going to do another one that we don't usually do after this. Now this is after our counter stretch, so let's go ahead and take that. Walking the hands back, pulling the left hip back, right hip forward. Stretching behind that left leg, lifting the heart. And then you have the option to stack blocks, to stack whatever props you'd like beneath you and sit as we find our yogi squat, our malasana, or you can do it in a way that is maybe more wood element. So we're going to bring both feet wide on the mat, heels in, toes out, elbows to knees, palms together. And then find counter pressure. That pressing in, that lifting up is metal. The sinking into our joints is wood. A rounding forward would be earth, or even sitting, where there's less effort of the body. Sitting on blocks, also more earth. Okay? You choose. One is not better than the other in general, but one might be much better for you than the others. And now, coming back to a seat. If there's a really great way for you to transition, go ahead and take it and transition. Otherwise, I'd like you just to lay down. And stretch out. Stretch the legs long. Stretch the arms long. Feeling no bends, no kinks in the hose of your energy channels, your meridian lines, your chi. Everything is open to move and flow, including the breath. So deep breath in and breath out. Feeling a little bit more effort at the bottom of the exhale, getting all the air out. Suspend the breath, wait. Feel the silence and the stillness of the body. Then breathe in. Let it happen naturally, however feels good for you. You can bring the hands down by the sides. Tuck the shoulder blades beneath you. Bend through the knees. And again, windshield wiper the shins from left to right. And begin preparing yourself for your Shavasana. So if there's another position, maybe Apanasana, hug the knees into the chest. Let the arms go straight or move through the hip joints you can. Take a happy baby or supine butterfly. You can also take some twists, letting the knees drop to one side, then the other. Letting whatever you choose here be whatever the body's asking for, not whatever the mind is saying, well, normally people do this. That's not what this is for. This is for your body, not other people's bodies. When you feel ready, getting comfortable, giving the body some support. If nothing else, even if you normally lie completely flat, I'm going to recommend something like a blanket under the knees, maybe a little something under the head, or maybe just a slight tuck of the chin, so the forehead's just a little bit higher than the chin. But then pull the ears back down towards the earth to help open up the airway. Again, tucking the shoulder blades beneath you. And notice as you do that, that the palms naturally want to rotate up towards the sky, possibly. Let the toes fall out wide. And let the breath be soft. Again, imagining that warm honey being drizzled over the body, starting at the crown of the head. Begin to imagine each muscle as it drizzles down towards your toes, progressively relaxing. If you find it helpful, you can activate those muscles first, use them or move them, but then let them soften. Let them find ease. Let them sort of begin to sink to the ground as if you're supported by a hammock. I'd like to read a quote as we come into our Shavasana. That quote is, "Being curious is a high state of being. When you are curious, you're not sure you know. You're a little empty, and you're willing to learn. These qualities bring you into the present, and being present is at the heart of practicing yoga." What were you curious about today? Is there anything in your practice that you felt curiosity or even questioning, inquisitiveness? Maybe it was finding your edges, wondering how something would feel in the body. Could even be, why are we doing this? It can be lighthearted or maybe more pensive, reflective. But curiosity is a big part of our practice. It's a big part of our life. If we weren't curious and wanting to know and grow, what would be the point, you know? So reflecting on what you were curious about, how you felt after you explored that, and then letting the mind soften just like you did the body. Finding gratitude for not only the curiosity but the resolution, whether it was as expected or not. And moving into your Shavasana with a deep feeling of gratitude. You have a body that can do so much, has been through so much, just like your mind and your heart. Allow those things to all get rest now. have the option to stay where you are, continuing to rest, to restore and feel peace. Or if it's your time, you can begin reintegrating back into your life, starting gently, letting it be a slow process, letting it be a really good wake up. Perhaps it starts with a big yawn and a stretching of the limbs, maybe the arms up towards the sky or up behind you, maybe the legs as well. You can roll through the ankles and the wrists, move through the fingers, the shoulders and the rib cage. Hug the knees into the chest if that would feel good. Again, this is all optional. You can continue your Shavasana as long as you'd like. But if you are reintegrating, let the movements get bigger. Let the eyes flutter open. Take in the natural light. Allow yourself to smile. Not for anyone else, just for you. Because it's good for your brain, good for the spirit. As you smile, let the muscles of the forehead and around the eyes soften. And let the smile, instead of traveling up through the face, travel down to the heart space. If you'd like, you can begin transitioning towards a seated position, or continue laying down with your smile that begins to radiate outward through that heart space. Hands can come together, Anjali Mudra, mudra of the heart. Take a big breath in, and a big breath out. Inviting in feelings of connectivity, of love, peace. And with that, I will leave you with Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om Shanti.